Greetings, citizens. Hey you beautiful creepy human being you. Welcome to my channel and welcome to today's Morbid makeup video. I'm so happy we could meet like this. I'm so happy that somehow, in all of this craziness that we're forced to endure on the daily, right? Today you and I were able to find each other on this crazy little planet that we call home. My name is Brittany or BRATTERSTEIN, whichever you prefer, and today we're going to be discussing the murder of Shad Thyrion at the hands of his intimate partner, Schabusiness. But before we get started, if you have not yet had the pleasure, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out a new video every single week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you specifically, you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. One of us, one of us, one of us. And you can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. They're all BRATTERSTEIN, but no pressure. Now, this video is on a case that is actually recent. I don't cover a lot of recent cases, but this one actually happened this year, back in February. I remember when it first broke. I remember hearing about the case. I remember seeing Taylor, the woman who is the murderer in this case. I remember seeing her mugshot all over the place, and I wanted to cover the case. I really, really did. But I have this thing, I have like an aversion to covering new cases because I feel like an ambulance chaser, and that's like not the vibe I want to be giving off. I feel like Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler. Great movie, by the way. And it's just a thing that I just don't tend to do. But I can't get this case out of my mind. And I was gonna wait for the trial. The trial was supposed to happen this October, which is actually the month that I'm uploading this. Not the month I'm filming it, but the month I'm uploading it is October. And it got delayed. And now I just simply cannot wait. So I'm going to give you all the information we have so far. I read all the things so you don't have to. I even read the criminal complaint, and wow. So today I'm going to tell you that whole story. And while I do, I'm going to be putting on a full face of makeup, hence the makeup in Morbid makeup. Now, if that's not really your thing, that's cool. No hard feelings. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you find a channel that presents this case in a way that you prefer. But if you're on the fence, you're not sure how you feel, I think you should stick around because I think you could be surprised by how much you like it, and also me. And if you're ever curious about what makeup I'm using, I will put it all down in the description box in case you see something you like. It'll be there so it's easy for you. Now, I customarily do a thing called the question of the day at the end of my video. So what I want you to consider during this whole story, during this whole video, I'm going to be telling you about the case. And at the end of the video, I want you to answer the question of the day once you have all the information, not just like the surface level stuff that you might have heard of. And that is this. What do you think Taylor's motive was for committing this murder? And do you think that she had diminished capacity at the time that she committed this crime? Now, with all of that said, come, gather around and let me tell you the story of the murder of Shad Thyrion at the hands of his intimate partner, Schabusiness. On February 23rd, 2022, the police in Green Bay, Wisconsin received a phone call from a frantic woman. She had called police to say that she had been sleeping, as one does, at 3:30 in the morning, when she was awoken by the sound of her storm door, like in her home, slamming, followed by the sound of a vehicle like taking off outside. So naturally, she's like, what the fuck is that? And she got up to investigate because like some noises are happening in her house, and that's not how things are supposed to be going down. So she gets up, she starts looking around, and she sees that a light is on in her basement. So she's like, I should probably go check that out. She says that she went down to her basement and she looked around and she didn't see anybody. There was nobody there. So she turned back to start to head upstairs. And when she looked at the stairs, that's when she noticed that there was a bucket on the ground by the stairs with like a blanket or a towel over it. She goes, she walks up to that bucket, she removes said blanket / towel. And what she sees is her own son's head inside that bucket. When police responded to the city's west side, they found the mutilated body of 24-year-old Shad Thyrion. So the police arrive at the home and they start to look around, and one officer goes down to the basement, and when he gets down to the basement, he notices the plastic bucket. And he says that it's covered with either a shower or a beach towel, but in the complaint, the criminal complaint, it's called both a towel and a blanket. So I don't know what it was. And that doesn't really matter, but I'm just letting you know that if I go back and forth, it's not that I don't know what I'm talking about. It's that whoever wrote the criminal complaint must not know what they were talking about. So anyways, he goes, he sees the bucket, he lifts the thing, the blanket / towel, he sees the head, and he's like, well, I don't know what he said, but I'm sure he was like, well, that's fucked up, because that is fucked up. And he looks around the basement, because it's like a basement, duh, and he sees that there is a good amount of dried blood on and around a mattress that's down in the basement as well. So upon further inspection of this mattress, which it was like a mattress with no sheet on it, they found that it was completely soaked in blood, and that under the mattress, like on the ground, it appeared that there had been a large pool of blood that someone had attempted to clean up. And they also found blood in other places of this basement. There was an unfinished portion of the basement, and in that area there was a shower. And when they went over there, they found that near the shower there was a lot of blood in the shower, and it appeared that a lot of it had been like attempted to be cleaned. So the blood under the mattress, somebody tried to clean it up. The blood in the shower, somebody also tried to clean it up over there. But despite their best efforts to clean it, the floor was like concrete, so it's kind of a little bit more difficult to clean, you know, like porous and things like that. So there were still numerous visible drops on the floor by the shower. Police continued searching, and they also found drug paraphernalia down in the basement. They found a glass pipe along with a baggie filled with powder. And that's a pretty messed up thing to find. Not as messed up as a human head, of course. And things were just going to continue getting worse from there. I don't know if I'd say worse. I think the head is probably the worst thing you could find. But as they looked around, they found other body parts, numerous pieces of Shad's body scattered around the basement. They found pieces of him stuffed in like plastic bags, including like those reusable shopping bags, just all around his own mother's basement. Of the pieces found was a torso that was found inside of a storage tote, along with a carving knife and several of his organs. And this torso had numerous, quote, rigid cuts where his head had been removed from his body. And Shad's penis was found in the same bucket that his head was found in, along with knives and what they called bodily fluid. It's like, this is real life. I think that's the part that's like kind of blowing my mind a little bit. Like, I do this every week. I look into cases every day, but I'm like, a head and a penis in a bucket in a man's mom's basement that she has to find, and then his torso in a tote. Like, it's just like, fucking what? It's like, it's a Tuesday, bro. You know what I mean? It's just too much. My brain is like, what the hell? Anyways. The head was found to have been severed at the neck, obviously, and upon visual identification, like they looked at a photo of her son Shad, they were able to tell by looking at the photo and looking at the remains that this was Shad Thyrion. Now, this is the part of the video where I would normally tell you all about Shad. That's a big thing that I like to do in my videos. I like to talk about the victim. A lot of people like to talk about the killer. I find them to be a lot less worth my time, I guess is the best thing you can say, because they're just like, oftentimes, most of the time, just murdering dicks, right? So I like to talk about the victims and let you know that they were more than just what happened to them, right? Like, what happened to them is part of their story, but they had a long, long, long story before we got to this unfortunate end. But at this time, there's not that much information on Shad out there. I'm sure that once the trial happens, there will be a lot more information if, like, the information that happens at trial is public, if she continues to plead not guilty, spoiler alert. But for now, there's not nearly as much information out there as I would like there to be. But with that said, I was able to find out some. He did have like a Facebook page and things like that. So from here, I'll tell you what I was able to find out about Shad. Shad's Facebook indicates that he was interested in other cultures, at least in other languages, being a cosmopolitan, if you will. He was learning Dutch, French, Russian, and Japanese. It's said that he had an interest in wood burning, woodworking, competitive dance, and knitting, which is pretty cool. He apparently liked writing, music, working out, fishing, longboarding, and chess. These items, these things, all of these interests were listed under his hobbies section. And truly, while I'm on the subject of his Facebook page, I just have one thing to say, and that is, what the fuck is wrong with people? We're sitting here and I'm telling you a story about a horrible woman, a monster woman who murdered this guy in the most brutal of ways. And yet I'm over here so pissed off about assholes on Facebook. Because listen, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of people on Facebook, on Shad's page, on Taylor's page, condemning her right? Saying what an awful person she is and wishing Shad a rad-ass afterlife, right? Which is to be expected. But there are also so many people who are going to his page and making jokes and putting like memes and shit about what happened to him. And I'm like, who fucking raised you? What sort of monster could do? What sort of piece of shit? I really wonder if these people don't know or just don't care that this was a real person, a real human being whose life was ended. That this is his Facebook page. This is his Facebook page that anyone in his family can go to leave him a message. You've seen it when somebody dies, their family members, their friends go and leave them messages on days where they really miss them because they're used to doing that and they don't have any other way to really get that out of them, right? And they're gonna go, his family, his friends, and they're gonna see these people putting memes about people losing their head. Like, it's so frustrating because then I think about his poor mother who literally found her own son's head in a bucket in her basement. What the fuck? I'm sorry if I went off on a thing. It's just very upsetting to me because I just think about his poor family, his poor mother, and her being re-traumatized all over again, and it really, really upsets me. Anyways, back to Facebook. Shad posted on Facebook a lot, mostly about music. Like, most of his posts were just reposting things about music, different videos of people. It looked like he really liked hip-hop. But anyways, it also seemed that at least like in the time right before his death, he seemed like he was really going through something. Based on his post, you can see he just seemed kind of sad and kind of down, like he was dealing with something and going through a bit of a hard time. And that makes me really sad, especially just considering like he died, right? He's never going to get a chance to get over these hard times. And it's sad to consider that like his last time spent on Earth was like not having the best time. And then he went out the way he did, and it's just like really upsetting. Anyways, Shad was born September 7th, 1997 in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and he was one of 4 children born to his mother, Tara, and his father's name was Michael. He had 2 sisters, a sister named Ava and a sister named, forgive me, Calivia? I'm not 100% sure. His parents picked very interesting names. Shad, Calivia, Ava, pretty normal, and then Bo, also normal. I mean, speaking of like interesting names, Shad's name was literally Shad Rock. Like, that is a very cool name. Shad Rock Therion. I would have been like pretty stoked on my family if they had named me that. I mean, maybe not as a lady, but like as him, I would have thought that was pretty cool. But anyways, he went to high school. Shad did. I don't believe he graduated. I think he like either left or dropped out, something like that. And after school, he went and he worked with his father and maybe his grandfather as well. I know at least his father at like the family business. Shad's obituary said of him, and I quote, "Shad enjoyed camping, games, and spending time with his family. He was a very kind and compassionate person who often thought of others before himself." Shad's uncle Nathan said of his nephew and losing his nephew, and I quote, "You had such a good heart and soul, Shad. I love you so much. I can't even begin to describe what we're feeling." And I don't know why, but I saw that this, I saw that this Facebook post has actually been deleted. I don't know why he would have deleted that. I don't think it's one of those things that people mention, but I don't think it's something that has to be looked into that much. But I thought I'd mention it in case like someone's like, oh, did you know his uncle deleted the message? Yes, I do. And his uncle also said that Shad was taken from them too soon by what he can only imagine is a monster, which, yes. So, speaking of the monster, we're going to get back to the day of the murder. So police go, they investigate the house. As I say, they find Shad's body. So they speak to Shad's mother, and this is where they learn who Shad had been spending all of his time with in the day, I think it was like 2 days before he was killed, and the person he was last seen with. And this led police to a home on Eastman Avenue in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And this was to the home of Shad's either girlfriend or like intimate partner is what I'm going with, because the relationship there is a little bit unclear, but this was 24-year-old Taylor Schabusiness. Now, who is Taylor Schabusiness? That's the question here, right? Well, that's one of the questions. There's a lot of questions. I have so many questions about this case, but she, like Shad, doesn't have a ton of information on her out there either, but I was able to find more on her. So let me tell you what I was able to find out here. Now, it appears that Taylor Schabusiness was actually born Taylor Denise Coronado, but she had her name legally changed to Schabusiness in 2018. Now, why did she do this? There are a couple of reasons. One could be because she got married, because yes, this woman who did this horrible thing is not only a wife married to a man named Warren, but she's also a mother to a precious little baby boy. So cute. Looked at it on her Facebook. Super duper 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 cute. Duper duper cute. And I'd like to think that the reason that she changed her name to Schabusiness is because she got married, because I don't know why anyone would choose that last name. Like, I'm trying to think of a reason, like Schabusiness. And I'm coming up real blank because it seems like a dumb fucking name. Unless your last name is Schabusiness and you're not related to this case, and I'm so sorry, your name is Rad. But now it's synonymous with this woman, so I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that, man. Anyways, her husband, his name is Warren. I don't know if I said that. They've been together, it appears, since 2017, according to Facebook. And he actually is in jail, and he was at jail. He was at jail just visiting. He was in jail. He was a citizen of jail, as they say. I don't know if they say that. That's what I'm going to say now. At the time that this murder was committed, and he referred to Taylor Schabusiness as his queen, saying that he would do anything for her. His bio on Facebook said, and I quote, "I do trust my beautiful wife. I will do anything to protect her. Stay strong, baby boo. I love you." Now, I wonder if he still feels this way, knowing what she did and that she was like banging some other dude while he's been in jail. I don't know, maybe they have some sort of agreement, but she seemed to be the type who would have done anything for him too, or at least that's what her Facebook would indicate, because she posted on Facebook about her husband. The Facebook post said, quote, "I haven't ate in 2 weeks. His bond money comes first." And this wasn't something that she posted. This was something that she reshared in December of 2021. Because romance, you know? And like I said, she had a son, the most adorable, tiny little baby boy in the world. But it appeared that she didn't have custody of him at the time, or at least it didn't seem like it based on what she was posting on Facebook. And I just hope this little guy's okay, you know? Like, he seems like he's young enough that hopefully this won't affect him too much. But I mean, just knowing that your mother is capable of this seems like the type of thing that would mess you up long term. So I hope that he gets whatever sort of counseling he needs to become the best version of himself that he can, you know? Now, Taylor's past is a little unclear. I don't know if she had like an official job, but it looks like she did like work a little bit from home for herself doing like beadwork. I don't know if this was a business or if this was just something she did from time to time, but she would make like little things, little trinkets out of beads and sell them online to like friends and things like that. And public records show that she had, in addition to living, you know, in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is where all of this happened, she had also lived in San Antonio, Houston, Temple, and Cotulla, Texas, and in another area of Wisconsin called Suamico. Yes, that sounds right. It also appears that she attended Bayport High School, which is actually the same high school that Shad went to, so maybe that's where they met each other, but like Shad, she also did not graduate. And somewhere down the line of her life, things just seemed to get derailed. And it seems like they got derailed pretty quick, because like she was only 24 at the time that this happened, and she had already had a lot of shit going on prior to this murder. So like shit derailed like right at the beginning. Like, you're an adult, so kid, adult, we're going fucking this way. Like, shit went sideways. I guess it's possible that shit was going sideways from when she was a kid as well, but I don't have that information to give you. I can just tell you that as an adult, shit definitely went sideways. So Taylor just seemed to have a little bit of trouble staying out of trouble. And she also had a little bit of an issue with drugs. She had previous arrests on her record, both in 2020 actually, so right before this happened. And in June of 2020, she was charged with battery or threat of a law enforcement officer, which is a felony, and resisting or obstructing an officer. And she was found guilty after pleading no contest. And records show that she was sentenced to 3 years of probation and 60 days in jail. And things really didn't seem to be getting better for her, because that same year she got into trouble again. In August of 2020, she was charged with bail jumping and resisting an officer. The bail jumping charge did end up getting dismissed, but then that same month, August 2020, she was also charged with misdemeanor possession of drug paraphernalia, resisting that officer, and a felony for trying to flee the officer in a vehicle. So she like did a bunch of shit, jumped bail, tried to run from a cop, and got arrested for all of that. So she just had like a lot going on. And I think for this, like for the resisting an officer and skipping bail, she was only given like 2 years. I don't know why I thought you'd get more for that. I don't know a lot. I've never been arrested, so I don't know a ton about like what goes on with that, but that seems like a low sentence, but I don't know, man. I don't know. Oh, I just consulted my notes. She did get 2 years, but not even 2 years in jail. She got 2 years probation for that. Doesn't that seem low? Maybe that's just me. So that's a little bit of her backstory, so you kind of know her situation. Now, at the time that she committed this murder, she was actually out of jail on probation, and she was wearing an ankle monitor at the time. Now, she had been wearing this ankle monitor for about 2 months when this murder occurred. And dude, she literally like found a way to take her ankle monitor off just hours before Shad was killed, which I found to be very interesting that she just happened to take it off at this time. But there are different reasons why she could have done that that don't involve premeditation, but I did think it was worth mentioning, because I was like, just hours before you kill a man, you remove your ankle monitor? Is that right? That's interesting. That's interesting information, Taylor. Anyways, because she removed this ankle monitor, she actually had a warrant out for her arrest at the time she committed this murder, but they just didn't pursue her until after she killed Shad. Well, I guess that's not fair. They could have been pursuing her, and that there's just no record of that yet. They could have gone to her house looking for her and just not found her because she was at Shad's house. I'm not sure, but they arrested her after the murder, of course, because murder. So, as I said, Taylor had a bit of a drug problem, and she even said, which we're going to get into, when she said what happened that day, she admitted herself that she was using a lot of drugs when Shad was killed. And this seemed to just be kind of an issue that was going on in her life around the time that this happened, because after she was arrested, after all this happened and she was arrested, one of her friends posted on her Facebook wall saying, and I quote, "I knew she had mental health problems and a drug addiction, but to be honest, I didn't know the drug side of her. When we hung out, she was not high. This is the girl who cried when I told her I had a tumor in my leg, who cried of happiness thanking God when my family received a Christmas miracle. She was always so kind to me and my family, but the last month, I had barely heard from her and assumed she was on a drug binge. And to be honest, I was worried about her, but not in the way where I thought this was something she was capable of. I wish I could have helped her get her life straightened out. I really do, but now it's too late, and I feel guilt for not being there for her more." This friend added that she was one of the few sober friends that Taylor had. She said there weren't many friends that she kept in contact with that didn't also use drugs like she did. This friend added, quote, "She made a choice, and unfortunately she will have to live with it the rest of her life, and it breaks my heart for all involved. I just am having a lot of emotions right now and I'm hurting. This girl slept at my home, played with my kids. I've known her for almost 9 years. It's just hard to accept that someone I thought was one thing was capable of such a thing." So based on her Facebook and posts from people on her Facebook, like the one that I just read, it seems that this was a problem that was going on in Taylor's life, that she had a problem with drugs and she surrounded herself by other people who had the same problem with drugs. She was birds of a feather flocking it together big time. And speaking of her Facebook, something that I found very ironic that she had posted on her Facebook, she reshared this back in December of 2021, so just a couple of months before the murder. And it was a post that she reshared of a picture of like a man and a woman. And in the post, the man was like all beat up, and it was like implying that the woman had beaten up the man. And this post said, and I quote, "I see everyone clowning dog for getting beat up by baby girl, calling him soft and saying he got attacked by Wolverine and blah blah blah. But what if the roles were reversed? What if he had beat the fuck out of her and her face was bruised and stuff? He'd be a monster, right? Stop with the double standards. Y'all want to be equal until a friend treats you like y'all equal. If men can't hit women, stop hitting men. It's beyond me." Taylor. Taylor. So yeah, that definitely made me like raise an eyebrow a bit, but anyways, let's get back to February of 2022. So according to Shad's mother, Taylor came over and picked up her son on the 21st, and she said from there, her son and Taylor had been together from the time that she picked him up until the time that he was killed. She said the day before he was killed, like, so he was killed in the nighttime. So the day before that, Taylor and her son had come back to her home and had gone down to her basement. She said that she didn't see them, but she heard them. She could hear their voices. She knew it was them. She said that that Tuesday, she and her boyfriend had left the house the entire day, which is presumably when, like, the day that he was killed was on Tuesday, I believe Tuesday night, and that she never saw if they came and went that day because they had gone out that day, right? Her and her boyfriend had gone out that day, so she can't confirm whether or not Shad and Taylor left or went anywhere, but that Taylor's van was out front when they left and also there when they got back, so she didn't believe they had left the house. So, police go over, as I said, to the home where Taylor lived. And when they arrive, they see her van out front and they kind of start looking at her van. And while they're out there looking at her van, Taylor just walks right out of her house, right? She walks out, and when she sees police, she's like, whoa, and she freezes. Police look over, they see her, and they know that it's her because they've already seen a photo of her dumb face. Like, they know what she looks like. And when they look at her, they see that she's covered in dried blood on the front and the back of her hoodie. There's blood on her pants. There's blood on her hands. There's still blood. So anyways, police ask her, like, hey, you know why we're here? And she thought that they were there for, like, an unrelated warrant, which is just wild. This whole situation, I'm like, what the hell? Like, first off, why didn't you wash your hands? Second, a warrant? Like, you don't think they're here for the person you killed in a basement? But anyways, they continue looking at her van. Well, not her van, actually. Fun fact, it wasn't her van. She had borrowed this van. And when they look inside this van, they find more of Shad's remains. In the backseat of the van, there was a crock pot box that was sitting on top of a basket of laundry. And inside this box, they found other pieces of Shad, including his legs. And to that I say, how big was this crock pot box? Like, what the hell? And this was a borrowed van. She had borrowed this from her roommate. Can you imagine being her roommate and finding out that this woman had murdered a man, mutilated his body, and then put his legs in a crock pot box inside your van? Whose laundry was that? Was that the owner of the van's clean laundry with legs in a box on top? There's just times, and this is one of those times, this is one of those videos where I'm like, what am I saying? What am I saying? What am I saying? Now, initially, when this murder happened, police came out, right? They give a statement to the media to give out to the public, and they basically said, they like were really saying the least, let's just say that. They said that a man had been killed in his relative's home, that it appeared all of the people involved knew each other, that he hadn't been shot, but his murder was being considered suspicious. That's an understatement, if I do say so myself. And that the public had nothing to worry about. And I read that because it was like, I read one of the earlier articles, that's where I got that information from, and I was like, imagine what the people in the area thought when they found out what actually happened, because they made it sound so benign. But it was literally the worst thing ever, one of the worst crimes I can imagine, that besides, like, I mean, it is Wisconsin, so besides like Jeffrey Dahmer, you know what I mean? Like, this is one of the worst things that's happened in the longest time, and they're like, it seems suspicious. But don't worry, everything's cool. Don't look over here, everything's fine. So Taylor, as I'm sure you can imagine, is taken down to the station, and when she's taken down, they note that she has like a cut on her thumb and scratches on her arms, and police were like, hey, where'd you get those injuries, dog? They didn't say that, but they basically said that. Like, where did those injuries come from? She said that they were self-inflicted. So then they start talking to her. They start bringing up the case. They mentioned to her that Shad's own mother had found his head in a bucket in her basement, and her response to that was simply, that's fucked up. Yeah, bitch, it's fucked up. It's real fucked up. Police asked her if she knew Shad, and she was like, yes, I do, actually. Yes, I do. And then they asked her what had happened, because, like, it was clear she did it, right? So they're like, what happened? How do we get here? I don't want to get copywritten, but that Paramore song, you know what I'm saying. If you know, you know. And she just simply said, when asked, like, what happened? You know, that's a good question. And then she said that she wasn't sure because she had blacked out when it happened. Of course she did. Blackouts really do seem to be happening at the times when people really do be needing them, don't they? I've never blacked out in my entire life, so I'm pretty jealous because like there's some stuff that I would love to forget, but you know, I'm just not as lucky as these people, I guess. So she does start to tell police what happened. She said that after picking up Shad that day on the 21st, the two of them went and picked up some drugs, and then her, Shad, and a friend of hers went back to her apartment to do said drugs. She said that they sat around, she smoked weed, she smoked meth, and then sometime after that, her friend left. She's like, thanks for the drugs, I gotta be on my way. She says that her and Shad wanted to like keep the party going. So she says that she then injected herself and injected him with trazodone, which I don't know a lot about drugs, but that doesn't sound, it sounds like serious. It sounds like anytime you're shooting anything up, I'm like, that's a choice. Anyways. They decided at that point, you know, it would be a great idea, a wonderful idea. Let's go back to your mom's house, Shad's mom's house, and let's go have some sex. Why they went to Shad's mom's house and didn't just stay at her apartment, I do not know. Because it doesn't appear that Shad lived there anymore, from what I can tell. But either way, they go back to his mom's house and his mom's boyfriend lets them into the house. Taylor says that within 5 minutes of being down at the basement, the two decided to have said sex. They weren't wasting any time. She says that Shad then went and pulled out 2 chains, one that was going to go around his neck and then one for her. She said that this wasn't a weird thing, that the two of them had used chains in the sex before. It was just something that they did. So she says that he then laid face down in the bed and gave her the end of his chain so that she could start to like choke him for foreplay, for fun. Okay, so she starts choking him. They're having fun. And all of a sudden she says that she blacks out, goes crazy, and just starts strangling him. She says that she didn't even mean to kill him. She just was really enjoying strangling him, like that was really doing it for her, so she kept doing it. And she says that she realized that Shad was dying when she woke up from her blackout and found that his face had turned purple and he was coughing up blood. She said that he kept, quote, rebuilding into muscle, which I don't know what the hell that means. She said that during this, she could still feel his heart beating, so she kept choking him harder and harder. And she said that during this time, he was trying to fight her off, and he kept trying to fight her off until eventually he stopped breathing. And when asked, like, why did you keep going? She was like, well, I already went this far. I'd already made him turn purple and start coughing up blood, so I figured I might as well just finish this. And she also said it was reported that she said that she liked watching his face as he died, which I found to be a weird point. That she could feel his heartbeat and that she was watching his face, because she initially said that he laid down face down on the bed, so there was a little bit of an inconsistency there. I'm imagining that when she started like really choking him, maybe he flipped over. I didn't see it reported, but that's what I would imagine. I wouldn't imagine you're just gonna lay there on your stomach being choked to death, you know what I mean? Taylor said that this murder was totally random, that she didn't plan it. It wasn't something that she went into intending to do. It just sort of happened. But she did say in like a quiet voice that she liked it. And when a medical examiner looked at his body, they were able to confirm that this was the case, even though like his head had been removed from his body. There was signs of strangulation. Now, this part's really fucked up. This whole case is fucked up, but this part's really like particularly like, I'm sorry, what? She says that she then stayed down in the basement with him all through Tuesday night, you know, and into Wednesday morning, down there with the body for hours, just playing with it. But what she was doing was sexually abusing his dead body in a variety of ways that included her mouth and toys, before eventually being like, okay, I've had my fill of this, and then she started to dismember him. She says that at this point she pulled Shad's body to the edge of the bed and then took that bucket and put it under where his head was, so that as she cut it off, it would catch the head and also catch the blood. And as the bucket filled up with blood, she would then take it to that shower where the blood evidence was found and pour the blood into the shower as she went. I know. She was asked, like, did this seem like the right thing to do? And she was like, well, I did it. She says from there she dismembered the rest of his body using knives that she had taken from his own mother's kitchen, making sure to tell investigators that she found the bread knife to be the most effective because it was serrated. She said that she then started to take the body parts to her car. She had intended on taking his entire body with her, but she says that she just got lazy. So she ended up just taking his like leg and foot, and that she intended to take the head for sure, but she forgot the head. And during her interview, she said specifically of this, and I quote, "Damn, the head. I can't believe I left the head though. Initially, she told police, you're gonna have fun finding all of his organs, which is just like incredibly chilling. And then she was like, okay, just kidding, just kidding. You're gonna find most of his body parts in the basement, except for like his feet and his legs. Those are in my van. And then she told police that if someone was to look around the basement, they would find his body parts and knives in various bags in the basement. Like, I think she said that they were like black trash bags. She indicated that she had just used whatever bags that she could find in his mother's basement. She was then asked, like, what did you do with the head? And she said that she had put it in a bucket and then covered it with either a blanket or a towel. So all of these things ended up proving to be correct. So if there was ever any question as to whether or not she did this, it was quickly answered. And the answer was, yes, she fucking did it, because she knew way too much about the scene to not be responsible, or, you know what I mean? She's like, she did it. She did it. Now, something weird, well, everything about this is weird, but something weird specifically that she said during the interview with detectives might give us some insight into her mind, or what she might have been thinking at the time that she killed Chad. I don't really think it does, but it is definitely worth mentioning. During the interrogation, she looked at the officers and she asked them, like, hey, do you know what it's like? Like, have you ever loved someone so much that you had to kill him? Have you ever loved something so much you had to kill it? I don't know what the officers responded with. I don't know what I would have responded with, but I know it's a weird fucking question. So, as I'm sure you can imagine, Taylor was arrested. She was charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault. The sexual assault charge being for the acts that were committed on his body after he was dead. So, literal necrophilia. Because she claimed, as I said, that she played with the victim's body for 2 or 3 hours and performed sexual acts on him after death. And she was being looked at as a repeat offender because she had been convicted of the battery / threatening a judge and trying to flee from law enforcement before in 2020. She was held on a $2 million bond, and I think this was so high for a couple of reasons. 1 being the severity of the crime, 2 being the fact that she was a repeat offender, and 3 being that she was a flight risk. I mean, she had literally cut off her ankle monitor, and it was said that she had family in Texas, so they thought it was possible that she would try to run. In court, she seemed really calm, like very chill, nothing too weird, but she wouldn't speak at all, so the judge ended up entering a plea of not guilty for her, like on her behalf. If convicted of the first-degree intentional homicide charge, she could be sentenced to life in prison. There was no death penalty in her state, but life in prison would be what she could get for that. And she also faced felony charges for mutilating the corpse, which would carry a sentence of 12.5 years in prison, or actually a $25,000 fine. And for the sexual assault charges, she could get 10 years in prison or a $25,000 fine as well. So she is looking at like a lot of stuff. A lot of time, and a lot of money for what she has done, which is the worst thing you can do. So, I mean, the DA in this case even said that this murder is one of the most serious offenses we've seen in the country in a long time. So, like, everyone is in agreement that this shit's fucked up. Now, Taylor's mental competency has really been a topic of discussion when it comes to this case. Her attorney said that she had been struggling with mental health issues from the time she was in 7th grade, and that she had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And she was evaluated as a result of, them questioning her mental competency. And they did this evaluation to see if she would be competent to stand trial. And in Wisconsin, this would mean that she would need to be able to understand the proceedings and aid in her own defense. Her first hearing was heard by Zoom, and she was there, but she wasn't really like paying attention and didn't really even show her face. She was only really responsive at all when the judge would ask her, like, are you paying attention? And then for the second hearing, it was in person. She was like brought in her shackles, and the judge asked her, like, do you feel like you are competent or incompetent to stand trial? And she responded with incompetent. 2 doctors ended up testifying about Taylor's mental state, and the doctor for the prosecution said that she was good, that she was responsive and cooperative, that she didn't need a lot of redirecting when questions were asked, like she was pretty like on track, and that some of her emotions seemed a little bit odd, but she didn't seem to be showing any signs of psychosis. Apparently, Taylor told this doctor that she had abused alcohol, meth, acid, cocaine, and Xanax. And she told her that her first day in the psychiatric facility was when she was in 7th grade after she had attempted suicide. The doctor stated that Taylor's mental history included bipolar disorder, ADHD, and PTSD, which are attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder, in case anyone doesn't know what those stand for. I'm sure we all do, but I just want to be thorough here, because that's who I am as a person, and I don't want you to not know anything. I'm here to tell you all the things. Now, the defense's expert had a completely different conclusion after speaking with Taylor. The defense's expert said that she definitely, probably wasn't fit to stand trial. Their evaluation was actually inconclusive. They didn't come out and straight up say, nah, this chick can't do anything. But they were like, I can't decide if she's okay or not. The doctor said that Taylor had signs of delusional beliefs and said that she had to, repeat questions often to Taylor because she didn't respond to the questions when they were first asked. And the defense's doctor said that Taylor would say weird things like that her mother had died when she was 11 and she took her heart with her. And that part's normal, right? That's totally normal. But then she said that her mother, when she took her heart to the afterlife, took it and gave it to a pedophile in hell. Which is it starts sort of wholesome and goes real fucking weird, right? Kind of like her saying that he was rebuilding into muscle. She does seem to say weird things. I'm not gonna lie. She does seem to say some strange shit. But the prosecution was like, listen, someone can be mentally ill and have symptoms of mental illness and still be competent to stand trial and be competent in helping defend themselves at trial. So let's boogie. And then after 4 hours of this testimony, the judge decided that the judge agreed and continued to decided that she was competent to stand trial and said specifically, and I quote, "By greater weight of the credible evidence, the defendant is competent." So this trial was set to begin in October of this year, October of 2022. And it seems, at least with the time that I'm filming this, that Taylor and her attorney were planning to plead not guilty based on temporary insanity, which is different than the hearings that we've already had trying to find out if she was competent to stand trial. So that's, is she competent at this given time to be able to stand trial for what she did? They said yes, she was, but now the attorney is going to try to prove that she was not of sound mind at the time that she committed the crime, which seems like everybody tries to do this. It seems like very few people are successful at this, so I don't want to say good luck, because bad luck, but let's see how that goes, right? But the problem is it's going to take time to build this sort of defense. So, since my legs are all messed up, sorry, oh my god. I'm sitting on the floor still, you guys know. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. I sit on the floor and my feet go to sleep all the time. Anyways, as of this month, is it September when you're watching this? It's September when I'm filming this. I don't think you're watching this in September. I think you're watching this in October. As of September of 2022, her attorney had requested from the judge to get a continuance basically because they weren't going to have time to get the hearing ready, to get their defense ready in time for the trial. So he was asking for a new status conference date so that they could kind of get their shit together and then set a future date for the trial. It does seem like this happened because the October 24th date, I believe, is the day that the trial was supposed to begin. Well, that date has been taken off the court's calendar and a new status conference hearing has been added to the calendar. So I think it appears that he got his way. So that's where we are in terms of credible information. We have to wait for the trial for more to come out. But there are theories about how this happened, why this happened. And I don't generally do a lot of theories, but I think that it's worth mentioning. There are two main theories that people are two camps that people are in. One is that she killed him in a drug-induced craze, right? And two is that she killed him because she wanted to, because she was obsessed with a certain serial killer who some think her crime, Shad's murder, mirrors a little bit. Now, let's start with the drug theory. By Taylor's own admission, she was doing a lot of drugs and she was mixing a lot of drugs. Now, I will say this. I'm not the person to come to for information on drugs. It's not my specialty. Oftentimes, if me and my husband are watching something and a drug is mentioned on TV, I'd have to be like, hey, is this drug the same as that drug? Because I don't know a lot. How many times am I going to say drugs? A lot. I don't know a lot about drugs. I mean, I was a teenager once. I partied a little bit. I tried things from time to time, but it's been years, and I never tried anything like the shit that Taylor was fucking with. So I read about it a little bit, and there was an article about this case where a Dr. Jean Yang was quoted talking about meth specifically, because that's something that Taylor was really messing with on this day. She called it the bitch, and this doctor was quoted kind of describing what it does to the body. Dr. Yang said that meth is a stimulant that causes physical damages to the brain's neurotransmitters and is a stimulant. And as a stimulant, it sort of activates your brain, which can cause you to not think clearly and to have an altered sense of reality. He says that this can definitely lead to agitation, paranoia, and can, but does not always lead to violence. He also said that a person who uses large quantities of meth or uses meth over a long period of time can develop psychosis, and he said specifically of this, and I quote, "You're not able to tell the difference between reality and what's not real in the world around you." So it definitely does sound like this could be relevant when it comes to this case. Definitely not an excuse for what she did, but maybe an explanation to how we got here. Something to explain, but definitely not excuse. It does seem possible that this wasn't a planned murder and that maybe Taylor is not a violent person and that in her drug-induced state she just kind of lost touch with reality and committed this murder, right? Sure, but even if that is the case, I don't think that that means she should get leniency, necessarily. Like, okay, drugs are one of those topics that are very, very polarizing with people. And I've said before, and I'll say again, I'm of the mindset that drug addiction is a disease. It's a disease that sometimes people inflict on themselves, and sometimes it is forced on them by others. There's a lot of ways that people become addicts. But with that said, I mentioned this in the Baby Dylan case. I have compassion. I have compassion for addicts. I really do. I've known people who are addicts. I've had people in my life who are affected by family members who are addicts. It's horrible to watch. It's very sad to see people try and fail at getting off. And it's easier said than done for people to be like, just stop. Okay? Like, it's not easy. However, once your addiction bleeds out from you and goes to you starting to hurt and kill other people, my compassion runs out. And I don't know, man. I don't know if that is the case. I don't know if she was in a drug-induced psychosis and murdered Shad. It's possible, but it's also possible that this was totally planned and that she had some dark fantasies and some dark ideas and some dark plans. I mean, she did remove her ankle monitor. Now, on the subject of dark fantasies, that's where we get sort of into our next, I guess you could say, theory. I don't like to say theories. You know, I don't like to cover theories. That's why I typically do just completely solved cases, because I don't like to speculate. I feel like sometimes theories can be distracting or disrespectful. But with this case, because there is so little known, and there really are only two main theories that I've seen discussed, I feel like it's at least worth mentioning. Because if I don't mention it, someone's going to say like, oh, you didn't mention this, because it is heavily discussed. Now, if you've heard of this case, I'm sure you have heard that Taylor was supposedly, allegedly obsessed with a certain serial killer. A serial killer whose crimes, hers does resemble in a way. In some ways it is similar. And that is Jeffrey Dahmer, a serial killer who was also from Wisconsin. Now, I don't know if this is true. I don't know if Taylor was inspired by Jeffrey Dahmer when she murdered Shad. The woman, the reporter who is saying this, who has put out information on this, her name's Ann Schwartz, and apparently she's pretty well known to the police department and well known to some people who are interested in true crime. Ann worked for the Milwaukee Journal back in 1991 when Jeffrey Dahmer was finally caught, and she reported heavily on his case at that time, and then went on to write 2 books on Jeffrey Dahmer after possibly getting better acquainted with the case during her time working as a public relations officer for the Milwaukee Police Department and working for the Wisconsin Attorney General's office. So it's possible that she got more information on the case by being close to those people for writing her books, basically, is what I'm saying. I don't know for sure, but it seems like that could have given her some more insight into the case. Anne said of the similarities between Taylor's case and Jeffrey Dahmer's case, and I quote, "I think that when people see that in fiction, it's one thing. And then when you find out that it happened in Green Bay, Wisconsin, or Milwaukee, Wisconsin, people just, you know, how could that be? How could that happen here? 30 years later, it's still the same. It's still the same feeling. Still very similar to finding out that someone like this was living in our midst. What makes it unusual is that it's a woman." And it is kind of weird that she's a woman. Not so much that she's a woman, because like women can do many things, obviously, but she was like a small chick. She was only like 5'2", according to you know, the complaint, because like they described the people in the complaint. She was only 5'2" and like 120 pounds. So she was like a small woman. And I don't know how small in stature Shad was as a person, but like I can't imagine he was much smaller than that, because generally speaking, most men aren't. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong, but and don't get me wrong, like a little person can be strong, tiny, but mighty, but it just does seem a little bit intense that somebody that small, that light, and that young could do something this brutal. Now, Anne says that she has sources that know Taylor, who are close to Taylor, who are giving her information on Taylor. She's not saying who her sources are, she's not naming them, but she says that these people have said that Taylor was sort of infatuated with Jeffrey Dahmer and with the Jeffrey Dahmer crimes. And that's not that unheard of. We have seen, if you're in, oh my freaking God, if you're in any true crime Facebook groups, you know there's a lot of weirdos who are very infatuated with Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy. Who else is considered freaking hot that killed people? I don't know. Those are the two that come to mind first. It's gross. Most of them are pedophiles, for one, and are murderers, which is like the lamest and grossest thing you can be. But I mean, people make choices, right? They do. Now, I won't say an interest in serial killers does a murderer make, because if so, lock a bitch up. Lock all us bitches up. Maybe not even an infatuation with serial killers makes a murderer. However, if you're infatuated with serial killers and attracted to serial killers, you might want to get your head examined, because serial killers are losers. As I said before, there's nothing lamer and grosser that you can be. But with that said, I do see where people are drawing the parallels between Jeffrey Dahmer's murders and Taylor's murder of Shad. I do see the similarities, but to me, I think the similarities are limited. So, Dahmer would bring his victims back home, he'd incapacitate them, and then sexually assault them generally after death, which was oftentimes death by strangulation. And then he would go on to dismember the bodies of his victims. Also, Dahmer was really private about what he had been doing and about being a violent person in general, and Taylor wasn't. She had posted weird shit on Facebook and then admitted to police that she liked killing, so that is different than Dahmer. Now, I will say that what I just described Jeffrey Dahmer doing does sound similar to what Taylor did. She did go back to his mom's house, not her house. She did incapacitate him with a chain. She did kill him by strangulation. She did sexually assault his body after death, and she did dismember him. All of those things are true. But Jeffrey Dahmer just went so much farther after the fact, you know, with his experiments when they were alive, for one, and his fucking morbid ass photography projects, as you could call them. I'm not going to get totally into what Jeffrey Dahmer did, because that is a whole nother case. That's a whole nother story. I'm not covering Jeffrey Dahmer today. Maybe I will in the future. It's one of those ones that I have considered covering because I feel like I know a lot about it. I don't really know if and when. It kind of depends on if you guys want it, but I can at least see where people are drawing those parallels, because they have a little bit of similarities. People are like, ooh, female Jeffrey Dahmer, like, you know what I mean? And I feel like it's a way to just sensationalize something that's already so horrible. I could be totally wrong. She could be totally inspired by Jeffrey Dahmer, and if so, I will eat my words. I'm just saying that that's how it hit my ear at first, or rather hit my eyes since I was reading about it. Now, we are in the unique position with this case where we are actually still able to financially help this family because the case is still fresh. Typically, the cases that I cover, like the time period where we could actually help financially, has come and gone because I wait until a case is totally solved. Some time's gone by, so it's not so fresh. But this is such a new case that all of the expenses are still currently happening. With the funeral and the trial, things will get expensive for Shad's family, and a GoFundMe page has been set up for the family, which I am going to link below. Currently, when I'm filming this, they've made just over $12,000 of their $20,000 goal. So if you can, donate anything you can. I think the minimum for GoFundMe is like $5, but if you have $5, instead of giving me like a super chat or a super thanks or whatever, why don't you just go donate there? If you can. If you can't, don't feel pressure to do so. Just, you know, share his story so that other people can do it. Share this video so that other people can do it. Or just talk about it. Or just, you know, send the good vibes. I'm not one for good vibes or, you know, thoughts and prayers. Personally, that's a whole nother conversation. But anything you can do will help this family. Just to know, like, even if it's just to know that they're not, like, alone. Because this is just gotta feel like the worst fucking thing in the world. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. The GoFundMe page says that the donations are going towards assisting Shad's mother and her family with housing arrangements, transportation, and funeral expenses for Sweet Shad. And they ask that if you are unable to donate, they humbly ask for prayers. Lots of prayers. So scratch what I said about thoughts and prayers. You can send those as well. They seem to want that as well, if that's what you can give. This case is just so sad, dude, and it's just so confusing to me. It always will be. Like, how can anyone do this to another human being? I don't get it. Like, why did she do this? Was it random? Was it planned? Like, it's possible that it was planned. It's possible that she had some dark fantasies and some dark plans, and that's exactly why she cut off her ankle monitor that day. But with that said, I feel like it's just as likely that she cut that off because she wanted to get high and party with her friends and not be on police's radar. So now that I've given you all of the information on this case, all the theories, everything there is to know, this is my question for you today. What do you think Taylor's motive was for committing this murder? And do you think that she had diminished capacity at the time of the murder? And just for conversation's sake, do you think that Taylor Schabusiness, a name choice, was influenced by another Milwaukee native serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer? Leave your answers to these questions down in the comments. But anyways, guys, that completes this video. I hope you found it interesting and informative, and it gave you all the information you would want when looking into this case. And of course, thank you for remembering Shad with me today. Any loss of life is very fucking sad. It's a tragic thing, especially somebody this young and in such a brutal way. I feel for him. I feel for his mom, dude. Like, I cannot imagine what losing her son has been like, especially losing him that way. And then to know that she had to see him like that, had to see, not even just like a different part of his body, she had to see his head, his face. That's just too fucked up for words. But anyways, guys, please let me know down below of any cases you would like to see me cover in the future. As you know, I have a long list of cases, and whenever you leave a suggestion down in the description, not the description, the comment section, hey, I put it down on my list with your name next to it so I can give you a shout out if I choose to cover it, if I get around to covering it. There's like a zillion of them at this point. But I love covering the cases that you guys are interested in. I love looking into the cases that you're interested in because you're filled with good ideas and good taste. Otherwise you would not be here. It's late, I know. I'm getting tired, getting crazy. I hope this made sense. This is very much like the one on Shayna Huber's where I was like, please be mean to me. Please be nice to me, but I feel dumb and I feel like I sucked at doing this case. That's where I'm at right now. Anyways, if you haven't already, please don't forget to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing the bell. I put out new videos every week and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you, specifically you. And if you want to hang out more consistently, everything will be listed down below in the description box for your convenience. All my social media. I have an Instagram, Twitter, Facebook page, and a TikTok, actually. Yes. I will also list all the makeup I use down below, the earrings, the nail polish, the lashes. Can you believe it? I put on lashes. It's because I'm suffering from postpartum hair loss and my eyelashes are falling out of my face. It's really fun. Love it. Worth it. And now, with all of that said, I just want to thank you for being here when you could literally be anywhere else in the world. That is tight. You are tight. Please stay safe and be a better person than you were yesterday, and I hope to see you in my next video.